Hi guys, and a very warm welcome to a full PMDG 737-800 tutorial. This is going to be going from setting up from a cold and dark to closing down the aircraft and going or getting the aircraft prepared for the next crew to jump on, or shutting the aircraft down, wherever you like to say that. A few things I want to point out before we start the video is yes, I might do things differently to you, or I might do something wrong. This is a tutorial to help people that are basic and that are trying to learn this aircraft, and people that have tuned into the stream. It's one of my streams, and I've asked, can you do one of these? So I'm doing it. Secondly, we're flying from Sydney to Brisbane, so we're in the Australia, so a little bit of a different scenery for us all to be checking out. So we're flying from Sydney to Brisbane. The aircraft is all in a complete cold and dark tutorial, and I'm going to take you through step by step. I don't know how long this video is going to be once I've edited it. It could be 45 minutes, how long the flight is, or it could be up to 3 hours. I don't know. So we're going to get into the cockpit and we're going to start setting up. So here we go, just let the cockpit textures load. So you will be greeted in the 737-800 NGX with a cold and dark state like so. It looks very bland, obviously, and basic. So the first thing you're going to do is go up to the overhead panel. You can do it from the cockpit view, to simply move your head up and go up here. But for the sake of this, we are going to actually go up to the overhead panel and do it this way, because I think this would be a lot easier. So what you do is there's a switch here, you simply just turn that on. That is the battery switch. You turn that on, and obviously the overhead panel has decided to give us some light. Now, because it's dawn at the moment, we're going to go up here to the dome light. We're going to turn the dome light on, and that gets some lights into the cockpit. Now, as you can see here, all the lights have obviously come on, and but the one thing we are going to do now is we are going to go on to ground power. But before we do that, we have this sort of black sort of nozzle in the middle of the overhead panel. That is the emergency light. So we're going to press that down, and that is the emergency light. So it just gets rid of that orange light there. That's quite an important step. We have these, just get rid of the warnings, because we'll check all that over when we are ready to go. Now, single FMC operation, we'll go to FSX actions, we're going to go to ground connections. You can have all air start unit, air conditioning unit, whatever, but we're just going to have the ground power unit, that air start unit, and the air conditioning unit for the sake of this flight today. Now, that's all set and ready to go, so now we'll return and we'll go to the fuel page. We'll leave the fuel page alone just for the minute. We're going to go back up to the overhead panel, and as you can see, the ground power button, which is this one, literally centered here, just above the APU gen switches, we're going to press that in, and that has given us ground power. As you can see, all of the screens have now lit up, and the First Officer's FMC has indeed decided to give us some power. Now, the first thing we can do now is go up to the overhead panel again. So we'll go up to the overhead panel, we'll lift it up, and there's these two white sort of like nozzle switches here. What we need to do is we need to bring that along to a line, and then we'll go nav and nav. That's just a line in the IRSs. Brilliant. Now, before we do anything else, if we was doing a professional or a most realistic sort of go through, we'll give the fire warning to test. So we'll just simply press the button down here, but we're just going to do it very vaguely. And let's see, obviously, to see that works. That's fine. Now, the fuel. At the moment, obviously, we are very, very heavy. What we're going to do before anything, we're just going to put that down to 10,000 for the time being. That is, we will go back to the fuel page when we have set it all up and we realise roughly how much fuel we'll be landing in Brisbane with. But for the meantime, we'll just reduce it down a tad. Now, we're going to go to the POS, or we press the init reference page, and then you are enlightened with the POS init page, or the init reference page. We are at Sydney, which is Yankee Sierra Sierra Yankee. That's the airport ICAO, which simply goes into reference airport. I don't know completely what gate we are at, so we'll leave the gate one blank. Now, in real life, you wouldn't use the last position, because that could be set for wherever your last actual position was. So say, for example, the last position was at Gatwick, for example, at gate 5, for example, and during the night they've moved you from gate 5 to gate 17. Now that last position will pick you up from gate 5, and it will just take the GPS system will take a lot longer to go through. So what we're going to do is we're simply just going to be, for the time being, using the Sydney Airport reference, because we can't confirm a gate for today's service. As you can see, all the screens have decided to look a little bit different, or they've all aligned. Now what we'll simply do is we'll go to the route page and we'll put YSSY in origin and Yankee Bravo Bravo November, which is Brisbane's ICAO in destination. Now, you could have, if you had a flight number, we'll put that in for the time being, because we are Virgin Australia. I don't know what the actual call sign is, but we'll just put Virgin 1 in there. Co-route, if we had a co-route via PFPX, we'll just put the YSSY like so, to YBBN, like that, like we have at the bottom here. We'll just put that in there, but we haven't got a co-route, so that's why we're getting invalid entry to pop up there. So obviously, like I say, we've got no co-route. Our departure runway. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to press Shift and Z, and we're going to find out what the winds are. And our current position, our closest runway is runway 07, and from the current winds that are in that are active, that is an okay runway to depart on. So we'll put 07 for the runway. Now what we'll do now is we'll go to the next page. So we're on the route and we're going to next page, and our first waypoint is Whiskey Mike Delta. So we'll put that on the right hand side, and then obviously this will be the first one, Mest Maitland. That sounds okay. So the VOR on 114.6, that is okay. So that is all okay and perfect as it currently stands. Our next waypoint is direct to. So what you'll do there is put direct to Gamble, which we have there, which is at the bottom, and we'll put that there. And then if this page was to come up, it is normally the top one. So that's just for example. Now our next waypoint is Hotel 66. Any waypoints with a number on which you put in the route will go to the left side of the route, so that page. Anything without a number on would definitely always go on the right side, no matter what. So our next waypoint is Juliet. The next waypoint is Juliet Charlie Whiskey. Now that's our route for today's service through Brisbane. So we can now activate that, and we'll press execute. Now going back up to the overhead panel, now we can have the yaw damper can come on now, and the window heats can come on, as it is quite cold outside at the moment. It is only 15 degrees, but you probably think, oh, that is quite warm, but you know, at the moment what we'll do is we'll leave the packs off, but the fans can come on. These two buttons here can simply go on. So what we've done there is put the window heat on, and the circulation fans, they've come on. That's okay, we can put them on, put the seatbelt signs on, because the refueling has mostly been complete. We are travelling north, so our flight level today will be even. We're going to go up flight level 240 for today's service. Flight level 240. Now as you can see, this panel down here is a pressurisation panel. This is very important. Make sure this button here, or this knob here, is on auto, and you put your cruising altitude in here, which my cruising altitude is flight level 240, and for the time being we're going to leave that panel above it, which is also pressurisation and airflow around the cabin. We'll leave that as it is just for the moment, because we're obviously still on the ground and everything is okay. We'll check all now to the navigation buttons. We'll check all of these three switches are on normal. This panel just to the side here, this is just in case if say my panels, my PFD and displays all say they foul, I can get from these panels what the first officer is seeing on his side onto my side, vice versa if the first officer was to foul. That's pretty much it. We'll just quickly check the ground power volts are all okay. That's pretty simple. Just they're obviously on a high number, that's obviously fine. Leave the probe heats off for now, and we'll leave the hydraulic pumps as they are. So we'll get back into the seat and we will set up the FMC. We'll continue. Now next page is the Perth init page. We'll go to that page. Now transition level you would find, or transition altitude, you'll normally find that out via charts, but for today's service, please correct me if I am wrong, we're going to use a transition altitude of 6,000 feet. It might be different, but I don't know, but this is just a basic tutorial. You would find out the transition altitude via charts. Now here is the Perth init page. Now you've got 0 fuel weight. You simply just press that in twice, or double click that the third sort of switch down, and it will give you a sort of working out here. Now our reserves today are going to be 5.1. These there's no point putting a reserves in of 1 or anything, because there's no point. You might as well be travelling with no reserves. So we're just going to have an extra reserves of 5. That's okay. Cost index is going to be 5 as well. And our cruising altitude, like I say, is going to be flight level 240. Okay, we're unable to determine a cruise wind because we haven't filed our flight plan, or the correction, we haven't looked at our flight plan in that much depth to be like that. that's practically it for the FMC. Go to M1 limit now, and that seems okay. Now for the takeoff, runway 07 here at, if we was to zoom out, go to an overhead view and quickly zoom out. As you can see, runway 07 is quite a long runway, so we don't need that much of a powerful takeoff. So we go into the FMC, we're just going to simply put, we're going to be using a 22k D-rate takeoff. So you simply just press that, and that is okay. We'll just use standard climb for the time being. But if you fly with a lot more sort of realism and more in-depth flying, you'd work out the other full field requirements on this page. But for the time being, because it's a basic tutorial, that is all. Because like I say, determining the runway length, we only need the 22k det rate. Now, takeoff page is the next page. We're departing here today with flaps 5, and that's simply you put that in, and it gives you your takeoff speeds. Obviously, because we have determined what runway we'll be departing on, that will come up. If these V1, V2, V-rotate, V2 speeds do not appear, don't need to panic. You just need to put the arrival in, which we'll go through very, very shortly. Now, the speeds have been put in. Now, the CG, or you just simply just press this, the centre of gravity. Simply press that, and it will give you your trim 5.42. We'll set the trim. Doesn't have to be exact, but it just has to be a little bit anywhere around sort of 5.42 will be okay for departure. Now, next page, we'll just double check that runway 07 is in use, because that's what we're departing on. But the winds here today are at, oh, there's no wind at all. It's at 0 knots, so that is okay. We'll put that in there. And it said the takeoff speeds have been deleted, but they haven't really. We'll just go back onto the page here, and we've got to jot down here the V1 speed of 139. The V1, the V-rotate speed of 140, and a V2 of 146. That will come in very handy in just a second when we fill up the auto panel. Now, departure and arrival page. We're departing, like I say, runway 07, but our first waypoint is a Whiskey Mike Delta. So, that isn't a required departure. Obviously, you come up there, takeoff speeds deleted again. So, we'll go back to that page in a minute and just refuel them back in. But runway 07 is what we're departing on, and during to charts, I think we're going on the Fisher 5 departure. That is what I believe is an RNAV departure, if I make myself correct. So then we'll just fill in the gap. That's okay, and as you can see, it just takes us out to a little bit off track to the right, and then we get back on route. So, like I say, that's deleted our takeoff speed. So on the legs page, we just press init reference M1 limit takeoff, and again, it's the same speeds, to be completely honest with you. Now, that's okay. So, like I say, we've jotted down the speeds. So we go up to, now we go to the autopilot panel. We'll turn the flight directors on for the moment being. We'll put the speed, or V2 speed in of 146. Runway heading can go in 070 in there. There's no air traffic control. If you was to fly on VATSIM on this aircraft, or same for every other aircraft, there are normally altitude restrictions when air traffic control is online, but there is no air to ATC online, so we're going straight out to the cruise at 24,000 feet after departure. Now, we'll put runway courses in as well, just in case if there is a failure on takeoff, where you will simply just be fit to come round for a ILS approach into our destination. We'll fill the comms in if required at the time. Now, back down to the pedestal here. This is very sort of this is obviously all comms and everything, but for the moment we can have the TCAS on TA only, because that is required for a busy airport, just to leave it on TA only. Now, you can press the TCAS button in, and as you can see, it moved down there, and we come back up here on the main displays. You can see it's sort of lines come. This is what you would call a TCAS test. So it's going to do us a TCAS test. As you might have heard him, it says TCAS test passed. That's okay. Standard squawk on the ground is 2,000, I believe. That's in Europe, but if in Australia, if you are Australian, watch this, and that's incorrect, please inform me. Now, that's okay. These are just the comms that you talk to air traffic control on. Obviously, you can select what you want. To say there's a pushback tug, it's plugged itself into the aircraft, and that's on like the third one. You simply just press the third one in, and you'll just tune it in, and you'll be able to talk to the ground to the pushback target. These are all VORs and NDB approaches as well, but we're just going to go in for an ILS approach, which is nav 1 and nav 2, which are these two underneath the or on the pedestal. Right, that is all okay. Now we're about to consider our pushback now, so we'll start the APU. That's that switch there. So go back up to the overhead panel and come back down. That is the APU there. You simply just press that down, and this sort of gauge here will start just to shoot up in a second as you wait a second. Low oil pressure, don't worry about that, just ignore that. That's nothing, that's no problem at all. As you can see, the gauge is shooting up now. So wait for it to drop back down, and the APU generator light here in the middle will illuminate like the APU generators are currently. So the middle one will illuminate, and then we'll simply press these two buttons there, and then we'll get going. Now that sender light is lit up, so we can press these two in. You've got to press the two in, otherwise one of the sides of the lights will just go out and it will just be a mess from the off. Now, like I say, the two displays on the FO side might go out, or my side might go out if you don't press them, both of them. So, you know, do it. Ignore the master caution lights at the moment. We'll go through all that in just a second. Right, FO's FMC. We're going to go to the menu, ground connections, and we are going to set the parking brake. And we will going to now set the wheel chock, remove the wheel chock, so it simply removes all of the ground power and everything else like that. If you was using GSX or Fly Realism, simply under the doors tab, there's all the doors. Pretty simple, does take a brainiac's mind to work that out. So leave the auto throttle off for the moment in time. We'll leave everything else as it is. We'll make sure the QNH is set 1013. That's what it currently is. That's okay. And these numbers here on the yoke, don't worry about them. If you was flying on VATSIM, for example, and our flight number was, for example, Thompson 771 Alpha, in here you could just simply put 771 in there to remind you what the call sign was. So that's all ready to go. We'll set a random squawk code. That's just in case. We'll just set a random squawk. There we go. And I believe we are now ready to go. So back up to the overhead panel now. We'll put a fuel pump on. When you start the APU, it's optional, depending if you have fuel in the centre tanks or not. You could put this fuel pump here, the left fuel pump on the centre tank can come on. If not, you can put one of these two on. That just relieves stress on the APU, and it obviously saving APU life. Now, going down into the FMC, it's telling us we're going to be landing to Brisbane with 7 tons. That's quite a lot. So we're going to go into the menu, FS Actions and Fuel. We're going to edit this now. We're going to edit this to 6555. For example, that's okay. And it's come up now we're using reserve fuel. That's okay. That's telling us that we are using our 5.1 reserves. So obviously that's okay for the minute. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the init reference, index and takeoff page. Leave our page on here for the takeoff. Like, it gives us all the information determined on the V1 rotate speeds and everything like that. So we'll leave it on there, and the first officer will have the legs page on. No fuel in the centre tank, so the pumps will go off, and we'll just leave that fuel pump on for the time being, obviously relieving stress. But because we're about to get our push back, we're just going to turn all the fuel pumps on. Overhead panel, the packs are going to remain off. Well, we did have the air start unit connected, but leave the packs off for the time being. We've got the isolation valve in, because you can't have all of these in motion, because it will just be too much for the aircraft. If you're going to have the packs on, for example, that has to be off. It's very complicated, but we'll get there. So we're going to go through that again. You can't have all of these on at the same time. I believe that is correct. If not, please correct me. And as you can see, obviously the duct press is obviously editing. The packs will come off. I think it just saves life on some of the aircraft instruments. So obviously, hydraulic pumps, leave the engine hydraulic pumps on, because you're wasting. It doesn't really do much. That you can just in real life, if you're clicking it in and out all the time, turning them off. They can turn off. It doesn't make no difference. But if you used to turn them off, it just wasting really nothing. And you're wasting the switch. Now the electric pumps can go off. This is literally when you start the engines, the electric pumps need to come into use there, so that's okay. Now, like I say, about to start our pushback, so the probe heats can come on now. Everything else seems okay. All the fuel pumps are on. Cruising altitude is in there, and the ignition switch now can go on to right, and everything seems okay. So what we can do now is we can turn the logo light on and the anti-collision light on. If we was to go to the outside the aircraft, don't worry if this master caution light comes up. You just simply then right click right click on this sort of black tab, and you just want to check everything there. So you want to check the electrics have been okay, the APU's okay. Don't check if there's anything being overheated. We'll check the fuel, we'll check the IRSs, and we'll check the flight controls. If nothing like that is okay, if things like that is okay and there is a master caution light, then you have to obviously investigate more, but that's obviously if that was to occur. Now, as you can see, the logo light has come on, anti-collision light has come on. Now, there's two ways you can do the pushback. You can do it via the FMC or GSX or Shift and P. For the time being, we're going to be doing a very basic sort of service, so we're just going to be using GSX for the time being. Get that up, obviously you know how to use GSX, it's common knowledge, Control F12 to get the panel up, but there is a tutorial on my channel about that if you really want to know. Right, we're going for a nose right, tail left departure. We're going to wait for the car to come around and connect, and we'll the ground handler will talk to us regarding our pushback. So like I'm saying, all the lights are still on. You've just got to wait. There we go.
Hello, Captain. We are ready.
He's just telling us that we're ready. He's ready to go. You go out to the wing view there. You can hear the hear him. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn the dome light off, and we'll simply just turn the brightness up like that on the pedestal. There we go, the pedestal lights can brighten up. That literally just lightens up the rest of the cockpit in a way, so it's okay. Or you can use the brightness switches down here which brighten up the panels, but we're not going to be using them because we're just going to keep that as it is. So it's telling us to release the parking brake. All you've got to simply do there is this is the parking brake down here, to release that. So here he goes, he's pushing us back now. Now, back up to the overhead panel. To start the engines, all we're going to do now is make sure this ignition switch is on right. Regarding what flight you're doing of the day, it can be, say for example, what some airlines require is, say I flew from Gatwick down to Tenerife and it would start the flight on right ignition, then for the left for the turnaround it will be on the left ignition. So it's pretty much a little bit different, but it's just what some airlines do. So the electric hydraulic pumps can now come on. Ignore these low pressures. They will eventually they'll all disappear. The electric hydraulic pumps, they've obviously disappeared because there's power in the aircraft via the APU, and the engine they will disappear when the engines are on. Now this ignition switch here, we're going to simply right click that along to right, and this knob here we're going to put that along to ground. Now we're going to go down now back into the captain seat, and as you can see here, we're starting to get an N2. The N2 is starting to rise, and the N1 is starting to rise. We can't start the engines until the N2 is above 20 and the N1 is above 2. So gone above 20, the N1's gone above 2. Now, down here on the throttle, or below the throttle, there's the fuel cut-off switches. We're going to put number 2, we're simply just going to click it, and that will go up, and that will give the engine some fuel. In the process, the N2 and N1 increase, which is starting the engine. So if we go to an exterior view, you will be able to see the engine number 2, which is here, simply starting. There we go. Engine number 2 has been started. Now back into the cockpit. If you go back up to the overhead panel, it's gone back off to the off position. Now you put the ignition switch now onto left, and you'll start the first engine, and the right knob here will go to continuous. So that's CONT, that's obviously continuous. Now, same applies for the first engine, back down on the panel here. Can't start until it goes above 20, and we have an M1 above 2. There we go, an M1 above 2. Now the same applies for the fuel cut switches, will give the engine some fuel. Tell us to set the parking brake, so just to do that you press the self parking brake down, or you can press control and full stop, depends how you tend to fly. Now the engine is obviously starting up, same applies. Go to an exterior view, the engine is obviously starting. There we go, engine has started. Wait for the switch up here to jump back into the off position. And we will now press the continuous button, ignition back into the middle.
Truck disconnected.
So that's obviously ignition of both. What we can do now is we can press generator on the left in the middle, generator on the right in the middle, and the APU is now simply, we can turn the APU off. So right click the APU switch and the APU has gone offline.
Left is clear. Right.
There are some rules regarding that. I mean, like some airlines will regard you have like 1 or 2 minutes on the clock, which is down here, which will go through when we land, because you'll be using that when we land. Some airlines regard that, saying you need to leave it for 2 or 3 minutes to cool down, whatever. But you know, we're just basics. Now the flap levers of the departing flap 5. Let's press the flap lever 3 times, or you can press F7 depending on how you fly. That's okay. The flaps are coming down, so if you go into a wing view, you can see the flaps are coming out of the wing. Now wait for the car to go back down to the stand, and then we can turn the taxi lights on. Now, let's go talk you through the lights. The wing lights and wheel well lights. The wheel well lights are used for a walk around only. They are used for walk around only, so you can fly them on, but it's just saving the bulb. The wing lights, that is used at night. So you're in the first officer seat, and for example, we're sitting in the first officer seat, and at night you'll be able to look out and see the wing, and there is ice. You turn that on to see if there's ice forming on the wing. So that's pretty much that. Now we can turn the taxi light on by simply pressing it in. Logic. So we're ready to taxi out here runway 07 at Sydney. Double check everything on the overhead panel. As you can see, the pressurisation light, or the low pressure lights on the hydraulic pumps have gone off. Now the packs can come on. We have the left pack on. APU bleed can go off. The right pack can come into auto as well. Perfect. Now overhead, go to an outside view and go to a top-down view. You can see our route in taxi. Simply take the first right and the first left, or you can take the second left, obviously depending on what you want to do. So release the parking brake by pressing it, or pressing full stop to release the parking brake, depending on how you fly. Now, just taxi, we've given the engines quite a lot of boost, so a bit of power to get the fuel circulating quite quickly, and we get the engines warmed up, because this is the first flight of the morning as it is dawn currently. So like I said, we'll be taking the first right. We can take the second right, it really does depend. Here is the first right here. As you can see, the taxi light on the wheel. There's a master caution light, that's just telling us that the throttle was too high. Do not worry, that was just telling us the throttle was too high, because my throttle is very sensitive. Right, meanwhile, let's make our we'll turn on the first available left. Now this white nozzle here, put that down once. That's now going into the RTO position. What that does is, if you are doing a rejected takeoff, that gives you max auto brakes pretty much, and just enables your takeoff a little bit more easier as well. So we're about to enter runway 07 here at Sydney. Before we enter the active runway, what we're going to do is we're going to just hold short of the runway. So we'll hold here at the holding point. We'll set the parking brake again, or you can just go on to manual braking, depending how you like to fly again. Now what we'll do here is go back onto the autopilot panel, and we will now turn the auto throttle on. Let's see that button there. Up into the overhead panel. The position and strobes and steady lights can go on, so just simply right click that twice. Taxi light can go off, the turn off lights can come on, and these two lights here can come on. We're not going to touch these other two lights until we land. As you can see at the moment on the outside of the aircraft, everything's okay, all ready to go. If we go back in and we press them down again, these two buttons here on the left come out of the fuselage, as you can see. That creates drag, which obviously uses fuel up, so we are not going to use them until we are on final approach with the gear down. Fact. Now, everything seems all a-okay for the moment being. Everything is okay. We've got some overheat warnings that have just popped up, but that will soon go. It's just because of the way I've been taxiing, that's the only reason behind that. It's because I've been really sensitive throttles. But apart from that, we're all okay to go onto the runway and consider our departure. Let's go. If you see out the right here, you'll be able to see the flashing lights. That's just simply the strobes. Now, how does toga work in this thing? It's pretty complicated, but it all depends on how you tend to fly. Now, lined up on runway 07, you could attempt to press this button here. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. To play yourself safe in the game, what we're going to do is underneath the course button here, as you can see there's something clickable. What we're simply going to do is we're going to put the throttle onto 40%, wait until it's at a steady sort of pace, and then we'll simply just press underneath the course. That gives us our toga. Toga is take off, go around, I believe. Take off, go around is what it stands for. We're now engaging our departure. We're just going through 70 knots now. – 100 knots. V1 rotate. So rotating between 10 to 15 degrees. That's okay. We're now at a positive rate. The gear can go up. As you can see, the gear has gone up. You've got to wait until you've gone past 400 or 500 feet before you consider engaging the autopilot, which we will now do by pressing Command A, and we will now press LNAV and VNAV, but we're now going to press level change and put the speed to the flap up speed, which is 207 it looks like at the moment. Now we're going to press the flaps into flap 2 position. When we go past the 1 on the display, that means flaps 1. So there we go. And then we go past the reference speed, that means flaps up, but we're going to hold the reference speed just while we clean up for the time being. Now, auto brake can now go into the off position. The gear lever, you simply just press it down once so it's locked in the middle. That's all okay. As you can see, we're climbing out of Sydney, en route into Brisbane. What we'll do now is we'll increase the speed to 215, bring back down here, and then we'll put the flaps up. As you can see, the flaps are going up. We'll now increase the speed to 245, and as you can see, we are climbing up to our cruise of 24,000 feet. Keeping a steady eye on the cruise rate, or the amount that we are climbing, because we are climbing quite quickly. We've just got to be prepared as well for a left-hand turn, which we're about to make. Going through 5,000 feet now. Before we go through 6,000, we'll simply just press the standard button. That is that button there. In this button is simply STD, stands for standard. That goes to standard pressurization. MTRS, we're going to press that in as well. That's meters. We just operate in meters above. The meters just appears as well. And that's it for the time being. See, we can put the TGAS to TAR right now. You could also do that on the runway, and you can press the traffic button. It will display the traffic. On the first officer side, you can press the terrain button, and that will display the terrain on his displays. So we're about to go through 7,000 feet now. We're climbing out of Sydney. If you just look behind us, you should be able to see Sydney. There we go, there is Sydney. Here's our left-hand turn. The overheating's gone now, that's okay. The isolation valve can be an open or auto, there's not really much of a difference. Now, what we're going to do is go up to the overhead panel now, and we're going to check all the pressurization and the cabin altitude and pressure is okay. The cabin altitude and pressure is all going up, the cabin climb is all okay and going up, that's all as required. The duct press is okay and as required. you know if it's different or it's odd, because say you'll be at like 24,000 feet and it'll be like at 0, then you know the pressurisation's done. Now I've gone through 10,000 feet, so we're going to come back up to the overhead panel now, and we're going to bring all the lights up. You can put these lights up by pressing these like stock, or you can just press them individually. They can go off, but these logo lights can go off as well, but we'll keep the other 2 lights on. Now we've gone above 10,000 feet, we can increase the speed. We're climbing on level change. This is just a simple way to get you up a little bit quicker, I believe, in times and places. But you can also do an LNAV and VNAV climb, but level change is just a little bit quicker regarding your climb. So we're flying down the coast at the moment, and on the legs page it just gives us some basic information of our routing to Brisbane today. We're unable to we're not going to follow the FMC's ETA for the current time being until we're actually until we're at the cruise, because all sort of information could change and information like that. We're currently flying on a heading of radial 348. So we'll put that in the heading for the time being. We'll leave the courses as they are, and everything else seems okay. The other things I'm going to go through is the M1 limit, or the fixed pages. We're not going to go through them today. These are simply fixes, really quite handy if you're departing an airport where they say climb, for example, say we're at Newcastle Airport and they say climb, after departure fly to 1.5 DME out of the Newcastle VOR, the Echo Whiskey VOR, or the Newcastle VOR, however the controller says it. You could put the VOR name in the fix there, and then, like for example, it would be Echo Whiskey or whatever. You say the VOR, you put it in there, and then the radial distance you simply just put a / and say you'll put 1.5, and you put it there, and a green ring will appear on your display for you, which is a radial ring, which will then provide sort of information for you regarding. As you've probably been able to tell, I'm not running Active Skynex for this tutorial. Don't really know the reason why, but we could boot it up, I suppose. But yeah, legit is real. So like I say, let's go through 17,000 feet. Just keep our constant eye on the pressurisation. It's all okay in the cabin. That seems okay. You can turn the seatbelt signs off. Press the attend button. That means you can get the cabin crew get off to work or whatever. If you was going at a bit more of a realistic sort of flight. Checking the temperatures and everything like that. Everything seems okay, to be completely honest with you. Regarding anti-ice, there's so many different ways of saying it. You only turn it on or what, but I always tend to turn it on under 10 degrees. We have a SAT, not a TAT, a SAT, under 10 degrees. But I'm just going to turn it on now. Only going to turn the wing anti-ice on, as the engine anti-ice is only required when going through icy conditions or icy clouds. I believe that is correct. Now, we're climbing up to our cruise of 24,000 feet for today's service. But currently it's going through 20,000 feet as it stands. Still on level change as well as it is. We could also increase the speed as well, which could increase our chances of getting to our destination a little bit quicker as well. Everything seems okay. Now what we are going to do is we're going to program in for an ILS approach, and we're going to go for a we're going to attempt a cat-free landing, or we could disengage. We'll disengage and bring it down manually when we're fully established, sitting on the glide. But we're going to find all that information out very shortly. First of all, we're going to have to get up to the cruise before anything else. There we go. We're currently climbing. It's not the greatest of scenery around here, and it isn't the greatest of weather we have. But this is only a tutorial which is based on the PMDG 737-800. We're going through flight level 220 now, and there's our routing. It's a little bit pretty basic, pretty direct. If you're wondering how I'm doing that, this is just a radius, which is you can zoom in or out and everything else like that. If you find a VOR, let's move that along to VOR. That's for the approach, and if you find map or anything like that, you can go to map or plan. For example, you go one more across to plan. No point pressing the weather radar, that doesn't work. This is just giving you other information. That's sort of decision height and everything on that one, which we will not be doing for today's service. And yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're just simply going to go to, because we don't have charts on board, we're going to go to world and map. What this does is this takes us onto obviously the default FSX map, and what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Brisbane in the Australia, obviously, and we're going up to Brisbane. We're going to press the airport. Obviously, if we had charts on board, it would be a different story. But this is telling us that we only have ILS available from a 1 and 1/9er, which is obviously okay because if you saw the runway lengths, it's understandable. Runway 1 has an ILS frequency on FSX is 109.50 over a course of 016, and 1/9er has a frequency of 110.10 with a heading or a course of 196. Spot on, that's okay. Airfield elevation, which is 13 feet, which you can find this out via charts, but we don't have charts on board. Now, I strongly advise, first of all, when you fly on VATSIM, you fly with charts. That's my first sort of big step up and say, that's my advice to every single one of you. So we're about to level out the cruise now at 24,000 feet. We'll now consider the approach. Let's look at the winds, and as that stands, it's going to be an ILS for runway 01. So you can pick your approaches. I'm going to press ILS 01, and as our last waypoint is Juliet Charlie Whiskey. So many ways you can do this. It depends how you tend to fly, but there's quite a lot of approaches, as you've probably been able to gather. And flying in different places like Australia can be confusing, but I advise you stay around within Europe. If you're from Europe, where you feel comfortable of learning this aircraft. So we're going to go arrival ILS runway 10, and we're just going to go for a mile 9 arrival. That's okay as it is, and we're going to execute that and legs it. Go to the legs page now, and we're going to press CF. Any route discontinuities will just fill in, and we'll go to a plan in a minute, and we'll just edit that as it stands. Now, on the displays here, we're simply going to put that onto plan, and as you can see here, we're just going to go step by step through what our arrival actually looks like. If it looks a little bit out of place, then we will fix that, obviously, like it is doing. Now, MLY, we are going to delete now MLY, and we'll fill it in with that. Now, Gala, and Grupa, we're going to delete them. So we're going to delete Bupra and Gala and fill it in with Bravo November, execute. Now, as you can see, that is now taking us round and in on the approach. It looks perfectly okay. If you have ATC online on VATSIM, then you're okay to edit. I advise you don't edit this if they're giving you an arrival in, because you're 9 times out of 10 be getting vectors for the approach in. If you're not on VATSIM, or you are on VATSIM, no air traffic control online, I simply just advise you will just go through the arrival and you correct it, vice versa. Now, back onto the plan page. We don't really need anything else regarding this. Go to the progress page, and it will give us your top of descent, how far away you are from your top of descent, and everything like that. We can zoom right out if you want to, or zoom right in, depending on how you like to fly. But for the time being, we're just going to leave it as it is, and we're going to put the runway 01, which is 016 on the course, and 016 on the course on that side as well. Brilliant. Now, we're now going to run LNAV and VNAV, and we're going to go into the FMC. If the cruise speed starts to drop, you can edit that by simply going to this page and just going to 325, which is our cruise speed that we wanted, and put it under the TGT, which means target speed. There, that then will fulfill that, and it will then fly up to 325. Now, before we start our rest of our descent prep, which is all we've done so far, is put the course in, I will see you guys for the approach into Brisbane, so I'll see you all very, very shortly. Hi guys, and a very warm welcome back and welcome back to our descent into Brisbane. Now, as you can see, the top of the descent is now approaching pretty quickly. But what we've done now is we've gone to the forecast page or the descent page, and we simply press forecast, and we're going to put 6,000 in the transition level. That's just to stop it saying we need to change the QNH and go for 18,000 feet. Back to the descent page now, and what we're going to do now is just going to recycle the MCP, and we're going to put the MCP down to 10,000 feet. And what we're going to do now is you're simply just going to press descend now. That means descend now, and execute that. If you're probably thinking, why has Nathan done that, or why have I done that? That's simply to save the engines. And as you can probably tell, as we go on to level change now, as we sound now, we go on to level change, sorry, and we bring the speed back to 250 knots. That is saving the engines. That saves the engines by putting the engines back into idle, and it just gives the engines a little bit more life. 10 or 20 nautical miles before you're meant to start your top of descent, it just like gives the engines a little bit more life. Now, meanwhile, now I've done that, we're going to use put the auto brake onto level 2. We're going to put the airfield elevation on to 0, because the 13 feet it was, and the 13 feet's below 25, which is obviously half as 50, so it's closer to 0 pretty much. We'll do that, say that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the wing anti-ice off now. We're going to come down onto nav 1. This is nav 1, this is the underneath com 1, and the frequency for the ILS on move 01 is 109.50. So that's tuned in, and we're going to change that over to the primary frequency, and the same on the other nav 1, 109.50. Primary frequency, change it over, win. Now that's okay, that's all set now, and we are starting our descent down as we bring the speed back to 250. We haven't really descent that much, it's just because it's bringing the speed back a little bit earlier than scheduled. As you can see, the outside the aircraft is just coming down over the sort of terrainy sort of areas. Lovely bit of scenery around, as you can see. So as the aircraft comes down now, so you're starting on more of a descent, or a bit more of a steeper descent. Just need to double check some things. So we've put the course of 016 in both sides, that's all A-OK. Airfield elevation's 0, which goes there on the pressurization panel. Flaps are going to be up still. We'll check the comms correct, 109.50, 109.50. Brilliant. Now we're deciding on descent, and we're going to keep our eyes peeled, just keeping our eye on our displays, because we want to probably will be known as something which is known as a self vector. That is when you sit, pretty much it's in the title, when you self vector yourself around and in for an approach. That's pretty much it. We're staying at a speed of 250. If we do have air traffic control online, he might tell you to give you a certain speed, like 255 or 250. You don't know, so whatever air traffic control says. Like again, we're doing a level change descent, a little bit different as well. You can obviously do an LNAV VNAV descent, but level change just confirms that you're going to get down in time. This is how I tend to fly. Like I say, guys, there are different ways of doing it, but this is how I tend to fly, and it works for me. So let's go through flight level 210 now. Keeping an eye on that is okay. Now this button here, we're going to the minimums or mins. We're going to do now simply cycle that across, so on the display it comes up. Our minimums are simply just going to be at 50 feet. That is all we're going to simply put that on, is 50. That's because if anything was to happen, that's all we're simply just going to put it on to 50. And then we'll disengage and we'll bring it down. Or if it was a Cat 2 or whatever, just disengage at 50. Now we'll come into the clock very shortly, because there is something we need to do that when we land. When you take off, you can set it at the holding point till it starts and all that sort of stuff, but you know, we haven't done that. It depends how in depth you like to fly. Now we'll check the fuel. The fuel is fine. We've got enough fuel obviously to get us to our destination. Everything is okay. Now in the FMC, if you was to fly a bit more realism, you can go on the route and you can obviously put alternate destinations in. which you can do, which is obviously a lot more in-depth flying. This is, like I say, just a basic tutorial to get you going in the matter of no time. So we're still on our descent down. That's pretty much our approach, go in and out and round and in, so it's pretty simple. Like I say, 9 times out of 10 will be a self-vectored approach. Go to an overhead view and just sort of pick it up from where we are. You can't really see Brisbane, to be completely honest with you. Yet again, some nice scenery around what we have. The lights have stayed as the same, but this is very important. These switches here in the cruise can go to off, or they can stay on continuous. It's completely your call. There's just your call, to be honest. So nothing really happens when you do that. Now, like I say, these 2 lights will come in. The retractable lights will come in when we land as well. We can turn the seatbelt signs on now. So we're obviously about 15-20 minutes out. So that's the standard time when you'll turn the seatbelt signs on. So, like I say, we're doing our descent down through flight level 1. We're about to go through flight level 170, down and into Brisbane. Now, the speed brake will make sure that it's armed when we come down, but I'll go through that when we are landing. Everything seems okay, to be completely honest with you. We can turn the brightness down on his now because it's obviously daytime and daylight, so the brightness can come off from them. That's okay. And fitting healthy. Back up to the overhead panel. That's okay. Depending how you tend to fly, if it was night time, you could turn the dome light on, or you could just turn the brightness of the panels up, depending on how you tend to fly. So, like I say, it's obviously your call. And like I say, you can do a VRR approach, NDB approach, or a full manual approach, depending on the how in-depth flying you go. But for today's video, we're going to be producing a ILS approach, which is an instrumented landing system. These are obviously retractable, if you didn't know. Just something to play with during the flight, I suppose. This is just an oxygen tester. You can test the oxygen. Playing around with that during the flight. Depends on what you want to do. This is just obviously this black tug here is what you use to taxi, do the nose wheel, etc, etc. So we are looking at it. We are roughly about 30 miles out from the field. It is about 30 miles out from the field. We will keep our eyes open to see if we can see anything. If you're on the first officer's display, there's obviously the terrain and everything else like that. And on my display we have TCAS, because I am obviously the pilot flying. The pilot flying tend to have the TCAS, and the first officer or the pilot who's not flying, depending, will have the display on whatever you require or what he would like. We're going through flight level 150 now, 15,000 feet. Obviously we are on running meters as well, I say, just by pressing that black switch there. Everything seems okay. This is obviously a very nice cockpit, the PMDG. Wipers, I'm wondering if your first flight seems to be a rain and just or a storm, that's the wiper switch there. That's the different sort of stage of wipers going through, depending on how bad the weather is, or weather can be. Now, everything is all okay. As it stands, what we could do, it obviously depending on how you tend to fly, but we're obviously coming on runway 10, which is obviously, as it stands, obviously she will still go directly to that runway there. So what we're going to do now is, this is what we would class as a self-vectored approach. This is where you come round on a self-vectored heading. We're going to call it 315 on the heading now. So this is turning, the airfield's about 20 nautical miles away now. We can self-vector if you are an approach controller on the VATSIM or IVAO networks, depending on what your preferred network is. There is many ways to you know your vectors. You know your vectors very well. If you are too high, you can bring yourself out and back round. But we are looking a little bit high, so we're going to bring ourselves out to 285 on the heading. And as you can see, we're coming over some terrain. Very nice. This sort of dotted line is the ILS. This is where you can pick the ILS up from and information like that. We're going to apply some speed brake now because you want to slow down. You can press that by pressing the /, or if you are a manual, like to fly manually, you can just pull that right back to the point where you want to bring it back to. But I tend to find that easier when you press the /. That is currently slowing us down to a speed of 200, which we currently require. So that's okay. You'll see during the flight you can keep an eye on the pressurisation in the cabin. Obviously we have started our descent, so the pressurisation obviously should be changing, which it is, telling us that that's all okay and ready to go. Now the speed brake's come into play. Now we're going to go into vertical speed. And we're going to come down using vertical speed now because we're on the self-vectored. When you are using vectors, when you are getting a vectored approach, you would normally have to get, like for example, it will be be flight level 130 to be leveled by Goodwood or whatever it is. So flight level 130, you could go through the FMC or do that, or you could do that manually on vertical speed. But I prefer to do it manually on vertical speed. And when you are getting vectored, you are obviously told to descend down to an altitude. So just like we're getting vectors, you could follow the approach in, depending on how you tend to fly. But for this sort of video, we're going to be using vectors. We're going to keep the speed brake out so the speed doesn't get carried away. The speed may increase, but that's okay because we have got the speed brake out, which will be able to manage some of the speed. So we're going through for level 110 now. We're going to keep our eye on this display because we don't want to get too close. I have to self-vector ourselves around even more, obviously depending. What we're going to do now is we will just go direct to CF. To go direct to waypoint, by the way, guys, you simply just press it and you change it to the top one. That's pretty simple, like every other normal FMC. So we're about to go through flight level 100 now. So we go up to the overhead panel, bring these two lights down. Turn off lights can come down and the logo light can come on. These two lights can remain off once again, like I stated in the first sort of part of the video. If you want to class this up to the first part, that might sound a little bit cheesy, but the wing light is for at night. You can use it to see if there's any ice on the wing, and the wheel well light, that's for when you do the walk around and stuff like that. These two lights create drag on takeoff as well, so obviously we can leave them off, and obviously they waste fuel. Now leave the taxi light off because obviously we're not taxiing, are we? Logic. So we're about to go through 9,000 feet. The speed could get a little bit over the top now, so we're going to decrease the vertical speed. I know some people say that you could extend the speed brake but use vertical speed. That's like using two systems colliding at once. Yeah, that is correct, but I am obviously using the speed brake for the moment in time to just using the speed brake for the moment in time just to simply get across the just so the speed doesn't go too far over the top of the borderline that where we want to go. Now we'll bring the speed back on the speed back 180 on the MCP. We can keep on the vertical speed to whatever we required, depending on our height, obviously. We're still a little bit high, so we're going to come round now, but we're going to be flying parallel to the runway. We're going to be flying parallel to the runway. It just gives us a little bit more time to descend down. As you can start to see Brisbane come into display now, as you can see the city of Brisbane there. So obviously this is giving us a little bit more time guarding our approach these turns. Obviously it isn't to the nicest of passenger comfort, but if it is required, then it has to be done, unfortunately. Now, simply now just bring it back round. Now we're going under standard, so we have to go onto hectopascals. You can do that by pressing B, or you can edit that by pressing it, depending on how you tend to fly again. You can put the head now onto an intercept heading where we're going to intercept the localizer, which I'm going to put it at 3.005 degrees. That's the heading I would like to establish on the localizer on. We still do have the speed brake out there, it's just the way we're turning that. We're going to now engage the VOR localizer button on the autopilot panel. Got a little bit of turbulence, we should be okay. As you can see, we've picked up the glide slope. The diamond will go up and it will just go into a diamond like it's got on the localizer here. What we'll currently do is we'll currently go flaps 1. As you go into a wing view here, you'll be able to see the flaps come out the wing, actually creating drag. Which we obviously require for landing. Back into that wing view, that's okay. Now, we're going to be levelling off at 3,000 feet. Going to the FMC again, we're going to go to init reference, go to the index, well yes, init reference, index and approach phase, and our flap 30 speed is going to be, which will be landing flaps 30 is 141, you put that in there, and the winds are, currently, there is no winds to be reported, so we'll leave the winds at +5 because that's okay, because obviously this might be variable. So our flaps 30 speed is 141. Now put the speed on 160 knots. Back, we'll leave the our FMC on the approach reference page, and we'll now go flaps 5. We'll lose the speed brake now, and we'll now arm the speed brake just by simply pulling it down until it easily, so the light here says armed. That's telling us that the speed brake has been armed. There's Brisbane, nice bit of scenery there. If you was to go down, you can see some streets and everything, looks really nice. Orbix Global. So we still have the VOR localizer switch engaged. An airfield down there. We're starting to pick up the glider now and the localizer. What that means now that we can bring it round to bring the speed deck back to our final approach speed of 141, and that means now we can apply flaps 15. That noise there is just a gear warning, that's okay. There is currently no DME at this airport, so that's okay. You'll eventually work out when it's a good time to put the gear down and everything like that. Now we can engage now on the autopilot panel the approach button, the APP button, and now we're going to press Command B. Command B, when you select Command B, that just simply allows an auto land to take place, which obviously we require. Check that the auto brake's on level 2, which it obviously is, and that's all okay and set. We've picked up obviously the localizer, and very shortly we'll have the airfield in sight. So we've picked up the glide now and we're descending. As you can see, the airfield is just coming into sight at 12 o'clock. So as you can tell, by the wing view, we started our descent down, and we're fully established and descending on the glide. This is where you would report to air traffic control, and we'll stick the gear down now. Now, this is where we go to the overhead panel, and we'll simply press this here so the retractable lights come down. Overhead view, and as you can see, the current the fuselage, and we can now apply flaps 25. Ignore the puppy lights as they currently stand. It's currently telling us we're too high, but the FSX puppy lights sometimes don't work, so you know, it's just a little bug within FSX. So we'll check that's armed, everything is armed and all ready to go. And the scenery decided to lag on us. We'll come back in a second. Wait for it, there we go. It's coming back very gradually. Or it might not want to come back depending on how it feels. Now we'll go flaps 30. Just a second. Here we go, flaps 30. This is our final flap setting at 1,800 feet. There's obviously the runway. And there's the scenery. See, we could disengage now and fly it in manually, but for the time being I'm just going to leave the autopilot on to bring us down. The wind is a little bit flexible, it means we're going for a little bit of turbulence. As we come down, that's completely okay. There's obviously the city, or the city of Brisbane. And here's obviously the airfield. We can zoom in and have a look at the airfield. So obviously there's the aircraft. And again there's the scenery. As we come down into Brisbane, the airfield is about to come into play, into full view now. So we're going to stay on a view in the cockpit. There we go. There, look at that, that's a nice screenshot there. And again, more nice scenery. $700 feet. $500 feet. $400 feet. So the puppy lights all the way down have told us we're too high, but as it currently stands, we're perfectly okay. There's some of the airport there. And here we go. Touchdown zone is appearing now. That's obviously where we've got a touchdown. Everything now seems okay. Wait for the touchdown. Touchdown now. Reverse green, speed brake armed. Water brake is armed. Until in view, there we go. Just leave it as it is. Wait for it to go over to about 60 knots. Where we can cancel the reversers. Ignore the master caution line, that's just me because I've just knocked the joystick forward. Manual braking, and we'll vacate left. So there we go. Lose the speed brakes, and we'll just clean up here, because obviously if I had a first officer we'll be doing it on the move, but obviously we don't. Also brake can go off, these lights can go off, they can go off, the taxi lights can come on, we'll start the APU. Then lights can go back down into the normal position, and that we can now start the clock. Boeing recommend you leave 3 minutes before you shut down the engines after a reverse landing, so we're going to do that. So we're going to put the flaps up now, and we're going to take a taxi to the gate. It's just the autopilot just knocked off. Master caution there, because again I keep knocking the joystick too far forward. So as you can see, just taking it left right hand turn now. Left hand turn here. Perfect, hopefully on that yellow line of ours. That's all we really want. Spot on. There we go. Straight ahead and into a parking space. Bring it round now and into this parking bay here. Applying some brakes just to slow down the aircraft as we approach the gate. And there we go. Just check if we're in an okay position for them to connect the jetway. Parking network and all that, but you know. There we go, that's fine. So we'll just wait for the engines to throttle back a bit. It's been 3 minutes. Wait just for a second, we'll set the parking brake. Just wait until it goes past 3 minutes on the clock. Just wait for it. There we go. Now they can now come off. The terrain can come off. TCAS should have came off. See, when you haven't got first officer, you know. We'll Squawk 2000 on the ground. There we go. Now we'll change the ILS frequencies over like so. Fuel pumps can come off. Taxi light can come off, APU can come on. Them lights can go as they are. Turn them to the logo light and the anti-collision light off. These two hydraulics can come off, packs can go off as well, and that can come down. Window heats can go off, probe heat can go off, yaw damper can go off. Every IRSs will turn them off as well, because we are the last crew on board today's service. We'll connect the jetway. Like so. The jetway is just coming across now, and we'll recycle all of this for the next crew so they don't get confused. Like so. So we'll just recycle this for the next crew that decide to jump on this Virgin Australia 737. Bring the bank angle round. That's fine. Speed back to 100 knots. Like so. We'll reset the fuel by right clicking it. It resets the fuel. There we go. So that's all okay now for the next fuel and next build to come on and do what they want to do to wherever they want to head next to. So that's it now for the PMDG tutorial. Yeah, some things were done wrong, but it gets you flying no matter what. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Be sure to hit that like and the subscribe button. Check out all the information out below, and until the next video, I will be seeing you later. Goodbye.